HOA raising monthly fees by almost 20% due to a legal battle with two residents who own non-certified pit bulls. Can anything be done to fight this? So the HOA sent out an email recently stating that they would be increasing the monthly amount by 20% after a long and costly legal battle with two sets of residents who did not disclose they were keeping pit bulls. The two sets of residents claimed emotional support animal, or ESA status, and had their lawyers fight it. The reasoning for the increase in cost is because the HOA stated that their liability insurance went from $2,500 to $10,000 a month, which is a 4x increase, and needed to comp that by raising the monthly rates of each tenant. No other insurance company would cover with the presence of pit bulls. They stated that this process had been going on for 6 months. They held our annual meeting last month, which was virtual because they got torn apart for the last in-person one, and nothing was mentioned of this ongoing issue. They purposely chose to release this information and the increase in cost after the annual meeting had been done to prevent the tenants from banding together. It's just incredibly frustrating that because of two sets of residents, the entire complex has to deal with such a high increase in HOA fees. Can anything be done? The HOA sucks in general. Upkeep for the property, snow removal, and so on are terrible compared to our surrounding complexes. Here's the letter that they sent out to all the tenants for more information. Please read through the entirety of this letter. It contains important information about your HOA insurance and immediate dues increase. Last September, the HOA learned that two different units here at HOA Place had unapproved pit bulls. Per our bylaws, all pets need to be approved in writing by the HOA board. This is for pet owner protection, as well as the protection of the residents of this community. It ensures responsible pet ownership, up-to-date pet vaccination records, and compliance with our HOA insurance, which will not cover our association if there are aggressive dog breeds living here. Our HOA insurer told us our policy would not be renewed April 1st, 2023 if the two pit bulls remained on our site. Per our bylaws, no owner shall do anything that will cause our association to lose its HOA insurance. Because both owners refused to remove their dogs, we were forced to seek legal action on behalf of the association to avoid losing its insurance. Both owners sought protection under the Fair Housing Act by claiming their pit bulls were emotional support animals and demanded that the association find new insurance for our association that would include pit bull coverage. When the board informed one of the pit bull owners that the pit bulls were prohibited, she sought ESA asylum after the fact. The other owner is a renter. Even when informed that their dogs would cost the HOA their insurance, these two owners refused to permanently remove their dogs. In spite of this, the HOA board tried to accommodate their request, per the Fair Housing Act, that we secure a different insurer for our association. Both the board and our insurance carrier contacted dozens of insurers, most of whom refused to even consider insuring an association with pit bulls. The few quotes we received that would cover an HOA with pit bulls were financially unmanageable. The HOA board did not feel that asking this of our association was a fair accommodation, and we were forced to seek legal action against the two pit bull owners. For the last half of a year, we have been working with an attorney on behalf of the association. This has been a time-consuming, stressful 6 months for the board, and we could not discuss this with everyone without compromising our legal case. As of April 1st, 2023, our HOA insurance was not renewed. This was 100% due to the continued presence of the pit bulls on the property. While one of the pit bull owners agreed to temporarily remove her dog, she claims that she did so on March 31st, 2023. This was too little too late, and our insurer would not renew our policy when it was literally within hours of expiring. The insurance we had a competitive premium, excellent coverage, and an almost impossible to find flat rate deductible of $2,500. This is no more. We were able to secure new coverage, but at an increased premium. Our deductibles will be 4 times higher at $10,000. Our premiums will increase approximately $8,500 a year. As a direct result, HOA dues will increase effective June 1st, 2023 by $20 a month to $170 a month. The $20 monthly increase is solely to pay for the increase in HOA insurance premiums and deductibles resulting from the presence of the pit bulls. Another fallout is that we will need to postpone some of the capital improvements that we had contracted for this spring, including replacing the wood retaining wall at the corner of street with stone due to the unexpected legal expenditures as described above. This person says to read the CC&Rs and figure out what exactly they can do budget-wise, but I mean honestly, if you have any questions like this, a lawyer should be able to comb through that letter and figure out what to do. Is it fair to punish all the residents because of the actions of two with the pit bulls? Let me know what you do. Now you get to be HOA president. Two-parent malicious compliance, posted by I Want a Secret Garden. Long but worth it. About 25 years ago, my parents built their dream house. Although the house is now in the middle of a large metroplex, when they built it, it was in the fringes of countryside with rapid development over 2 decades. When they bought the lot, they were the first to purchase from the developer. The developer sold to 3 original neighbors, my parents and 2 others, all at the end of the cul-de-sac in a row. The other streets in this plat also became a large subdivision with a fancy name that would come to bear a lot of prestige. But that meant being part of an HOA. They didn't want that. The developer wouldn't sell them the land without an HOA. If you aren't a part of the community, you'll need to form your own HOA and get it approved. So my dad, with a beatific grin, said he would be the HOA president of our single suburban street. He and the 2 neighbors drafted the bylaws of their own HOA in strict accordance with the planned neighborhood. But they added a special provision that the president of the HOA could name a successor instead of having the street vote on one. Absent a majority rejection, the successor would be the president, essentially trying to avoid terms in campaigning while still offering folks a way to dispute the HOA president, important for later. So, in the winter of 1994, my father very seriously took the thick black CD binder full of laminated and hole-punched instructions and the pages on how to be a good HOA president and put that binder in the very back of a cabinet and forgot about it for the next 16 years. The homeowners of our street were not asked to pay an annual fee, and the HOA didn't police number of cars, color front doors, or any other ridiculous standards HOAs enforce. As it was a quiet cul-de-sac, no one did anything more egregious than the occasional reckless teenager. Then, a new family built the house across from us. It consisted of 2 children, a husband, and a stay-at-home mom we'll call Gladys, Kravitz for the Bewitched fans. Now Gladys was a real busybody. She would stand at the front windows of her house to watch and patrol which cars were using the cul-de-sac to turn around, when houses down the street held events and parties, and were using the front of her house to park for literally a night, and sending noise complaints to the police about barking dogs, her other neighbors' kids, there were 6 in a blended family, the other neighbors' cars, they were collectors not even repairing cars, and other ridiculously petty things. She didn't have a job, so safety patrol became her whole identity. She would always hurry over to gossip whenever my mom was taking out the trash cans to the curb. Sadly, my dad contracted a neuromuscular disease in 2005. It got bad quickly, and he was confined to a wheelchair. I learned to drive for my hardship license in a handicap van, and we had more than the usual number of cars due to the round-the-clock caregivers in the later years. Gladys decided it was time to offer help to my poor mother, who was slaving absurd hours just to keep creditors at bay. Gladys very sweetly approached, expressed her sympathies for our struggles, pointed out the number of cars in our driveway, and generously, so generously, offered to take over the president of the HOA duties if my father would name her successor. After being hounded the 6th or 7th time, and Gladys hinting that if my mom was struggling so much, maybe she could send my dad to hospice and move houses to something more suited. In fact, Gladys's best friend was looking for a house and would love to live across the street and buy our house. My mom frickin' snapped. She basically told Gladys to stop asking and that her husband was dying, and it was incredibly insensitive and rude to offer to kick us out of our neighborhood and to take over just because she wanted clout to annoy the neighbors about letting kids play basketball after 6 p.m. Gladys responded nastily that my dad would have to name a successor because when he died, soon, the HOA presidency would revert back for election. Okay then, Gladys, you're absolutely right. My dad should name someone the HOA president as his successor after his 16-year reign. Malicious compliance activated. After my dad died, my mom found out that she was named as the next HOA president in my dad's will. Dad never said anything about it while he was alive, but his rumor was always understated. Gladys was apoplectic. She tried to overturn the successor claim and run against my mom, but nobody else on the street contested the choice. No one, all new neighbors after 20 years, even knew we had a special single street HOA. And for another 9 years, my mom did absolutely nothing as HOA president. My mom had to sell the home in 2019 very unwillingly, as it was the house my parents built together. But with the development of the city, property taxes had risen too high and priced her out. I took a week off work to fly out and help her pack, and while packing up the house, we found my dad's OG 1994 HOA binder, bylaws and all. And of course, Mom had to name an HOA successor. So this time, she did comply. The malicious part was more against everyone else. Very ceremoniously, not, my mom finally named Gladys the president of the HOA and gave her the binder, which apparently has long since been digitized and something Gladys has been reading for fun in preparation of this moment. Apparently, Gladys went rabid with the power as her kids had gone off to college and promptly charged everyone on the street $100 a month towards neighborhood incidentals, supposedly for mowing the strip that people just mowed themselves, and a highly encouraged neighborhood barbecue one Saturday a month to address the neighborhood concerns. She also outlawed basketball hoops in driveways, dictated no cars could be parked on the street or in driveways, but only in garages. Things like landscaping and holiday decor approval and other inane, absurd power trips. My mom kept her Nextdoor app open and watched Gladys go down in flames. 3 separate households moved and dropped long, hate-filled call-out posts about Gladys, making their lives a misery until they couldn't stand it anymore. That's 3 of 12 houses, by the way. Yeah, Gladys wrecked a single street HOA with a quarter loss. Gladys got everything she wanted. My dad to name an HOA successor, my mom to name an HOA successor, for us to move away, and for her to finally be HOA president. And now everyone absolutely hates her, and no one will pay her $100 to go to her barbecues. And before my mom finally deleted the street from her next door, it seems that the rest of the street had voted to hold an election for a new HOA president. Her tenure lasted 6 months. Gladys doesn't understand why people talk so fondly about my parents as the most ideal HOA presidents, since they never did a thing. My mom is 2 years into her new home and does not miss the neighborhood anymore at all. Okay, so everyone is super mad at my mom for ruining many lives like Syndrome from The Incredibles. Let me explain how the handoff/nomination went. Holy crap, Secret Garden, the moving truck is coming in 1 hour and we still haven't cleaned out all the shelves in the study. What do we do? Just start throwing crap in boxes, Mom. And here's a trash bag for old cords and papers. Oh my word, your father's old HOA binder. Toss it. No, we can't. I think this is supposed to be kept by the city or something. Mom, we don't have time. We can mail it to the city or something. Hon, run it over to Gladys. Mom, are you sure? She's always been bugging me about it. She can keep it. Now run. I then literally tear downstairs, race across the street, ring the doorbell, shove the binder into Gladys's hands with a "my mom says this is yours now, bye," and then race back to find out that the Christmas decorations were still in a forgotten cabinet and need to be thrown into a trash bag. Literally zero premeditation and 100% aggravated meltdowns about moving. I cannot stress how much my mom did not want to move. I took out a lot of the emotional parts originally in the draft as not necessary or limiting the word count. My dad built her that house. The first night in the new house, she, as a 58-year-old woman, cried until 4 a.m. begging to go home. She loved our neighborhood, our street, and our house. She did not try to ruin her neighbors' lives. We didn't know anyone left on the street by that point anyway. They'd all been priced out or moved too, except for Gladys. The end line is kind of a throwaway, saying my mom is doing much better now and she doesn't miss Gladys at all. I do feel bad for all those folks driven out by Gladys's dumb rules, but I'm also going to say that the high property taxes probably didn't help. If I ever won the lottery, the first thing I would do would be buy our house back, put it in a trust, and let my mom live there for the rest of her life. Anyway, to the commenter saying my dad was a freaking legend, he absolutely was. Taking down Queen Karen, president of the HOA, posted by California Oldtimer. Okay, this happened years ago, 1985 to be exact. I was 45 when this happened and I'm 81 now. So after my second retirement, I started doing property management. I bought this 2,500 square foot luxury home in with the sole intention of renting it out. Now I didn't know how bad the HOA was, but when I became the owner, I soon found out. This all took place in 2 years' time. Karen would literally have a problem with everyone in the neighborhood. Trash cans left out? Fined. Loud music after 10 p.m.? Fined. Yard sale without permission? Fine. Removing dead plants and replanting without approval? You get fined. It went on and on like this. Now the community could run for the HOA board, but the HOA board chose the president. 6 out of the 10 members on the board liked Karen, so she always kept her job. Her husband was in the medical field, so he made a lot of money. It got to the point where she was called Queen Karen in the neighborhood and her dishing out HOA fines. Now I used to go in person to collect the rent because the people that rented my house were good friends of mine. I did this for months, so I would park my car by the front of the garage. I and my friends were having some music on, but it wasn't that loud. Queen Karen came over, driving her golf cart, and said, "Excuse me." "Yeah," I replied. "You have to turn that music down. It's too loud." I told her that it was 8 p.m. and that music that's even loud can be played until 10. She wasn't having it and demanded that I do so. Now my friends and I kept the music going and we were enjoying ourselves. She proceeded to get angry and fine me. Now, most people would just take the abuse and pay the fine, but not me. I went to the HOA board, I contested that fine, and I won. From that point on, Queen Karen made it her personal mission to destroy me. She would be and fuss about every little thing. I fought what I could, but I did end up paying for some of it. She also went after my tenants, which made things worse for me. So I had to sit down with my friends one night to discuss the problem. When I parked my car, Queen Karen came over in her robe and said I have to park somewhere else. I did because I didn't want to start anything. So we see her go back into her house and embrace a man that isn't her husband. We were being nosy and we came to the conclusion that she was cheating on her husband. Spoiler alert, she was. So my friends and I told Queen Karen's husband. I'm sure he did some investigation because 3 months later they divorced and he was moving his stuff out. Now gossip said that Queen Karen got nothing because she was the one that cheated and she didn't have a job, so she wasn't entitled to the money. From this point on, Queen Karen had a massive decline in the quality of life that she had. She sold her car and got a cheaper one, and she adopted different dressing habits. But even after the divorce, she never got a job and she was still living somewhat better than everyone else. Fast forward to 1986 in February. Queen Karen and the HOA had been giving out fines for very obscure things and increasing monthly dues. Having trash cans out a couple of hours early or after the trash man left would result in a fine. Targeting people that had older or dirty cars, and it just goes on and on. Me and the other people, the community, were sick of the crap that she and the HOA were pulling. So at the next meeting, we made our voices our concerns. Queen Karen said that the community had been falling behind on repairs and that the dues and increase in fines were necessary, especially if people weren't maintaining their own property. She said that it was in the yearly budget report and that we should have read it. The other ticked off residents and I go and read the statement. Now, none of us read it because we take it as a junk mail and disregard it, but we read the whole statement, cover to cover. Queen Karen had increased the HOA budget 15%, and where that extra money was going remained unknown. So we went over to her house the next day and we demanded to know where the extra money was being spent, but she refused several times. We closed the door and went back to watching TV. We're filing a joint lawsuit to find out where the money was going, and in June, we found out. Cue the revenge. Queen Karen was living off HOA fines and dues. The increase is because she was running out of money. She still didn't have a job, so she embezzled from the HOA so she wouldn't have to get a job. She gets busted. We call the police for her embezzling the money, and she was charged with fraud and extortion. The neighbors and I filed a joint lawsuit against Karen to get reimbursement as well, Because she had no money, she had to mortgage her house to pay us all. She later went to federal prison for 6 years with no parole. Because she went away, no one was paying on our house. The bank foreclosed on it and it was bought by someone else. So when she got out in 1992, she was homeless. Honestly, the majority of us didn't want to ruin her life like this. Had she toned down the excessive fines, we would have let her be. But she had to double down and steal from us because she didn't want to get a job like everyone else. How I got a car dealership to give my friend a newer car, posted by Reddit admin Dumb87. Circa 2020 January, my friend makes a stupid decision and buys a brand new car he can't afford. His insurance is like $400 a month. He makes like $10.25 an hour working as a shift supervisor at McDonald's. His car payment is $795 a month. Now at $10.25 an hour, 30 hours a week, that's a weekly income of about $300 a week or around $1,230 a month. So yeah. So my friend came up to me for help because I used to sell cars and I know the industry pretty well. I go over his paperwork. The dealer did rip him off, but my friend is trying to find a way to get out of this mess. And ripping someone off, it isn't illegal. They did, of course, overcharge him for warranty. They gave him a higher APR, they had add-ons and so on, but none of that's illegal, and I know the only way I can get my friend out of this deal is if they did something illegal. So I look at his finance application that my friend signed. It correctly listed his income, which turned a light bulb on in my head. No bank is going to approve someone for a $795 car payment if they're only making $1,200 a month. It just doesn't make mathematical sense to do that. So I started searching through his paperwork for the finance app that the dealer submitted to the bank. You oftentimes, when you submit a finance application at a dealership, the dealership will take the hand-filled application out and then reproduce it electronically. This is pretty normal. However, on the application the dealer submitted to the bank, the dealer said my friend was a GM of the McDonald's and made $70,000. My friend had good credit, so it doesn't appear like the bank asked for a proof of income. So I go to the dealership with my friend and I tell the sales manager he's going to want to put me in touch with the GM because we're going to be unwinding my friend's deal and giving his trade-in back. The sales manager thought I was joking. The GM also thought I was joking. Then I demonstrated how his dealership finance department committed bank fraud. I showed the GM the finance app that my friend filled out, and then I showed the GM the finance app his dealership submitted to the bank and pointed at the income difference. My friend really made $14,000 a year, and the dealership claimed my friend made $70,000 a year. That's bank fraud. That's a felony. So let's keep this simple, shall we? The GM sees his dealership is in a load of crap. The proof I am presenting to him is rock solid. He knows it, I know it, and we're all on the same page. He goes, "Oh, okay, so what can I do to make this right?" I go, "Unwind the deal and get my friend his trade-in back." Unwinding the deal is basically the GM agreeing to cancel the deal and basically erasing the deal and pretending like it never happened. GM tries to avoid that, but I remain firm and remind him that we can easily take this documentation and turn his life into a living heck. He knows I'm right. My friend also needs a car to get to work the next day. The GM says he'll check into it, and he comes back and tells me that, well, unfortunately, they sold his trade-in already. I said, well, that's fine. Just unwind the deal and let's put my friend into something as good or slightly better than what he traded in for. So the GM goes, so he'll buy a car similar to his trade-in? I said, no, you'll give him a car similar to his trade-in. GM goes, it doesn't work that way. I go, well, it does when you commit bank fraud. GM is upset with me, and I remind him I'm being really nice, and this situation can totally get really ugly. Like felony level charges ugly. Like losing your franchise ugly. So yeah, this is gonna hurt, but it's gonna hurt less my way. So the GM goes, oh, all right. And he looks in his inventory and he tells me that they have a 2007 Focus with 10,000 more miles. I tell him, no, the car you give my friend needs to be the same or better than what he traded in. The GM counters, well, I'm giving him a free car. And I go, no, you took his trade-in, you sold it, you made money on that sale, you also committed a felony in the process of selling him his new car. You are now correcting that mistake. This isn't a free car for my friend, this is you are correcting your mistake. GM insists that's what he's willing to do. I tell him that if he can't do better than that, we will go to a consumer protection attorney and have a conversation with them. My friend didn't want to go this route. but it was our plan B. So we get up. The GM says, wait, please give me a second. The GM goes, I have a 08 Civic. It has 5,000 more miles, but it's a Civic and not a Focus. I unwind the deal on the new car and put your friend in the Civic at no extra cost. We agree. The GM has the paper drawn up, the old loan on the new car is canceled, and they take in the new car again, but because it's already titled, they'll have to sell it as used, and well, that sucks for them. And they gave my friend a better car than the one he traded in. For people asking why we didn't get a lawyer involved from the start, well, we could have done that, but courts take a long time, and this was a faster way to fix the situation. It is a really bad idea to make a government employee angry, posted by Reaper0221. This one is a double government employee event, and what you should know is if you get the attention of a government employee and make them angry, they'll make your life a living heck. Sorry this is a long one. The setup is that I was working for a local county government in the permitting department that handled drainage and floodplain enforcement. I received a complaint from a homeowner, nice guy, who lived next door to a house that was part of an incorporated village, not nice guy. Nice guy lived in an unincorporated portion of the county, and hence the call to me as an agent of the county. I drove out to the site and to investigate and discovered some interesting facts. The permitting agent for the village allowed the incorporated homeowner to fill his lot, affecting the drainage, which caused the unincorporated lot to flood every time there was anything more than light rain. Nice Guy indicated that there was some tension between him and Not Nice Guy, and part of the issue was that Nice Guy and his partner were a gay couple. This ran up a red flag for me, but in trying to be impartial, I took the information and some photos for the file and indicated that I would contact the village to find a resolution. I wrote a letter and then called the village inspector, Jackwagon, to discuss. I was told by Jackwagon that the village could do as it pleased and that I could do nothing to stop Not Nice Guy from doing as they pleased, as it was approved by the village. There was then a comment about those type of people, the gay couple, making complaints just to cause trouble. I was now on the case, and it was time to make sure everything done on the incorporated lot was 100% legal. At this point, the game certainly was now on, because if there's one thing that grinds my gears, it's bullying. I went back out and spoke to Nice Guy to let them know what I was up to, and also that I was not going to let this slide. I then started investigating the elevations on the two lots and what fill had been placed on the incorporated lot. The Not Nice Guy came out and started getting belligerent about my presence and the ongoing investigation. He incorrectly stated that I did not have jurisdiction over his lot and that he would be calling the police. I patiently listened and then pulled out my two-way radio and requested that a home-based dispatch both a village and a county police unit to the location. I then indicated that since there was a regulatory floodplain on his lot, I did in fact have jurisdiction and that I would be exercising my right to determine the impact of his fill activities upon that floodplain. Both of the police units showed up and I let them know what was going on. They were both appropriately agitated to have to waste their time and let Not Nice Guy know that I was within my authority to proceed with the investigation. A little while later, while I was measuring things, Jackwagon showed up. He started berating me about harassing the village resident and threatening to call my boss and filing a complaint and so forth. I invited him to do so, quoting which parts of the code he should indicate that I was violating. I was using marking paint to show the limits of the floodplain for the photos for the file, and what do you know? Jackwagon's shoe got painted when he tried to stop me. Obviously, he was even more angry, as was the homeowner due to the very bright orange paint in the grass in his yard. I pointed out that I had done the same on the neighboring lots, but they just kept complaining. It was actually marking chalk that comes off pretty easily. Interestingly, I found two really wrong things on Not Nice Guy's lot. Number one, there was fill placed in the floodplain, and two, a garden shed was built on the fill and partially within the floodplain. Both are a big no-no and are actually against federal law. So, the course of action had two parts. One, make the incorporated homeowner remove the fill and the shed from the floodplain, and two, let Nice Guy place fill in their lot outside of the floodplain to counteract the fill remaining in Not Nice Guy's lot outside of the floodplain. I also told Nice Guy that it would be a good idea to run a field tile on their side to drain the water that would inevitably pond up between the two lots when it rained. Predictably, Not Nice Guy and Jackwagon got super angry when I sent the letter out that there were violations that either had to be corrected, which is remove the fill in the shed, or apply for a revision of the floodplain with the Army Corps of Engineers. Good luck with that. This then led to a meeting at the county office with Not Nice Guy, Jackwagon, my supervisor, and myself. Quickly, things went to 11, and there was yelling by Jackwagon about abuse of power and so on. The department head came to the conference room and told them both they were wrong and that they should leave peacefully and comply or face the consequences, which were fines. The best part was that Not Nice Guy had to apply for a permit, and guess who was the one to review and approve it? That's right, yours truly. Now, I was following the letter of the law, but you have to know that poor government workers are underpaid and overworked. Strangely, the permit for Nice Guy was almost immediately approved, while Not Nice Guy had to have a very thorough review to ensure it was correct. You could make a case that I was abusing my power, but I can assure you that the timing for their review was well within acceptable limits. Also, how could I be held to account that they misfiled 3 times before they finally got it right? Generally, if you behaved like a civil human and came to the office, we would help you get things done properly so the permit would go through first time. But Not Nice Guy decided he could do it all on his own, so it took him 3 tries. Had he come to the office, I would have given him the same service as others, but he decided to take the hard route, and therefore I didn't give a single inch when it came to the submission being perfectly correct. Ultimately, the situation was resolved, but it took a lot more effort than it should have. Moral of the story: don't be an entitled homophobic a-hole. Sued the HOA president. He keeps finding me, so I ruin his HOA. Click the video on your screen so you get this awesome story, and I'll see you there.